Okay, let's unpack something I hear about all the time from English learners, maybe you too.
Mm.
You're listening to someone speak English, could be a movie, maybe just talking to a friend, and you hit that moment of frustration.
Yeah, that feeling.
You know the words, like you can see them written down perfectly clear in your head,
Mm.
but actually catching what's being said, it feels, well, impossible sometimes.
It doesn't even sound like separate words, does it? Often it's more like one long, continuous rush of sound, a
Exactly.
sort of linguistic blur with no clear starts or stops. It can feel like trying to drink from a fire hose.
That's a perfect way to put it. If that feeling resonates, if you've ever thought, why does native speech sound so incredibly fast? Please know this.
Yeah.
You are absolutely 100% not alone.
Oh, definitely not.
This is probably the most common challenge, I think, for people learning to understand spoken English at its natural speed.
And here's the critical insight, right up front.
Yeah,
It's not usually because your vocabulary isn't big enough
right.
or your grammar isn't strong enough. The main reason is that when native speakers talk naturally, especially, quickly, the sounds of the words change. They change dramatically from how they look on a page.
Or how they might be pronounced really slowly and carefully, like in a language lesson.
Exactly. The sounds shift.
Right. That's really the crux of it, isn't it? We link words together, we reduce or even drop certain sounds completely. And the rhythm, the whole musicality of it, is totally different from that sort of isolated word style you often get in textbooks or maybe beginner audio.
And that mismatch happens because, well, a lot of English learning understandably focuses on the visible parts, reading, writing, the grammar rules.
Which are essential, of course.
Absolutely essential.
Yeah.
But that focus doesn't always automatically train your ear for the messy, fluid reality of natural spoken English.
So your brain is kind of primed for one thing, based on the written word.
Exactly. It expects neat separations, full sounds.
And then it hears something quite different, especially at speed, and it just registers as fast and confusing.
It can feel overwhelming.
But here's the truly empowering part, and something the material we're diving into today makes crystal clear. You absolutely can train your ear for this.
Yes, definitely.
Recognizing these natural patterns, the linking, the reducing, it's a skill. And like any skill, it's totally learnable.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive. We've gone through sources that explain this exact challenge, and they lay out some incredibly powerful practical strategies.
Yeah, these aren't just abstract ideas.
No, not at all.
Mhm.
They're practical ways to help you start identifying those sneaky patterns native speakers use without thinking.
Right.
They'll help you catch words even when they're smushed together or shortened,
Yeah.
and ultimately build real confidence when you're listening.
So over the next little while, we're going to break down 4 key areas based on this material. First, why native speakers connect words. It's not random laziness.
Definitely not. There's a logic to it.
Second, we'll look at those super common reductions and contractions that change pronunciation so much. Things like gonna, wanna.
The usual suspects, yeah.
Third, a really crucial realization: you don't actually need to hear every single word to understand.
That's a big one. Takes the pressure off.
And finally, a really effective hands-on technique called shadowing to actively train your ear for this natural speed and rhythm.
Honestly, once you start noticing these common changes, these patterns, it's like the volume gets turned down on the chaos. English stops sounding like that overwhelming, fast blur. It starts to feel slower, clearer.
More manageable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More like actual language you can process and understand.
Okay, I'm excited. Let's just jump right into the first big pattern then. What's a foundational idea, the thing that really changes everything from the written page to spoken reality?
Okay, the most fundamental concept, the absolute bedrock here is this. Natural spoken English is not a sequence of individual words, each pronounced perfectly, with little pauses in between.
Like beads on a string, separately.
Right. Forget the beads on a string idea when you're listening. It's much more like a continuous flow of sound. Words connect to each other, they blend.
So you're saying that neat separation we see in writing, those spaces between words, we should basically ignore those when we're thinking about listening to natural speech.
Pretty much. Think about typing for a second. You hit the space bar between words, right? Your brain sees those physical spaces in writing.
Yeah.
But when we speak, we don't hit a sound space button between every word. That would be exhausting and sound really unnatural.
Tilted.
Very stilted. Our mouths and tongues, they move as efficiently as possible. They transition smoothly from the end sound of one word to the beginning sound of the next.
Efficiency, like taking the shortest path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This creates linkages, connections, where the final sound of one word can actually affect or even merge with the initial sound of the next word. Consonants might link to vowels, vowels to vowels, consonants to consonants. It all flows.
That makes so much sense from a physical perspective. It's like conserving energy, trying to be efficient with your breath and your mouth movement.
Precisely. It smooths everything out, it makes speech faster, and it requires less physical effort for the speaker.
But, and this is the key part for the learner.
But for the listener who is expecting those neat, separate words based on the written form, it can be incredibly disorienting at first.
Because the sounds aren't matching the expectation.
Exactly. It's probably the #1 reason why the English you read looks and feels so different from the English you hear spoken naturally, especially in casual conversation.
Okay, let's make this concrete. Give us an example straight from the material we looked at. What's a really common phrase that totally transforms because of this connection?
Okay, a classic one. The simple question. What do you want to do?
Okay, written down. WHAT space DO space YOU. 5 distinct words. Look straightforward.
Looks straightforward, yeah. But think about it. How often do you actually hear a native speaker say, slowly and clearly, what do you want?
Almost never in a normal flowing conversation. It would sound really strange.
Exactly. What you'll hear, incredibly commonly, is something much more like, what do you want to do?
Wow. Okay, say that again.
What do you want to do?
What I want to do. That's a huge difference from what do you want to do. So what do you completely changes into wadea and want to becomes wanna. How does that even happen? What are the mechanics there?
Well, it's a cascade of small changes, really. In what you, that sound at the end of what often changes when it's between vowel sounds, becoming more like a quick sound linguists call it flapping.
Okay, so what sounds more like what?
Kind of, yeah. And then that links to the day of do, and then you get the day sound plus the Y sound of you. And day plus you very often merges in English to make a J sound, like in juice or judge.
Ah, like diddy becomes dio.
Exactly the same process. So what do you goes through those steps and compresses into what I. It's all driven by making the sounds flow more easily and quickly. The tongue literally moves less.
Fascinating. Wanna.
Wanna is similar. The final T sound in want often disappears entirely when it's followed by another consonant sound, like the T in two.
So that the T just vanishes.
Often, yes. And the vowel in two, which we think of as AGA, gets reduced in unstressed words to a weaker sound, like the schwa sound or even just staccato. So want plus reduced to links up smoothly to form wanna.
So it's not just about speed, is it? It's about the actual physical production of the sound changing because of the sounds that come before and after it. It's about assimilation and efficiency.
Precisely. And this isn't just one weird isolated example. This linking, merging, changing, it happens everywhere in spoken English. The material we looked at gives us some other really common pairings that illustrate this.
Okay, you mentioned did you becoming didja. That dids plus you're making a J sound.
Right. If someone asks, did you eat? Spoken quickly, maybe informally, it's almost always going to sound like did you eat? That fusion of D and J into D is a very standard connection in English. Happens with would you too becomes would ya.
Okay, did you, would you? I can hear that now you pointed out. What about something super common like, I don't know, everyone says that a million times a day?
Oh, that's a perfect example of both connection and something we'll talk more about next, which is reduction sounds getting weakened or disappearing.
Ah, okay. So how does I don't know change?
Well, first, you rarely hear that final T sound of don't pronounced clearly before the K. No, it often gets dropped entirely.
Just disappears.
Pretty much. It's called elision. And the vowel sound in don't, the O sound, often weakens, maybe becomes a bit shorter or less distinct, especially when spoken quickly. So the whole phrase commonly comes out sounding like, I don't know, or even faster. Sometimes just dunno. The T is gone, the vowel might be different, and don't and no link seamlessly together.
So if you're listening specifically for the clear sounds of I don't know, especially that T,
you'll likely miss it entirely because what you actually hear is, I don't know. Your brain is trying to match the incoming sound pattern to the written word pattern it expects, and there's no match. Confusion happens.
That makes perfect sense. What about another one from the source, like planning for the future?
Yes. I am going to go. Let's break that down. First, in almost any natural context, we'd use the contraction I'm.
Rhyme.
But then going to undergoes a massive transformation in casual speech.
Yeah.
It very, very commonly becomes gonna.
Gonna. Yeah, that one's famous.
Right. So I'm going to go becomes I'm going to go. For a native speaker, I'm going to go feels like one smooth, easy-to-say unit, but it's miles away from the full written form, I am going to go.
This is really illuminating and also makes total sense now why it's so challenging for learners. You're listening for a specific sequence of distinct sounds, the ones you see on the page, and what you're actually getting is something completely different that's been smoothed out, merged, compressed.
Exactly. And the critical takeaway here, the thing to really internalize, is that connected speech is not an error. It's not lazy speaking or bad English.
Right, it's not wrong.
Not at all. It's a fundamental, natural characteristic of fluent, efficient spoken English. And the magic happens when your ear starts to recognize these common patterns.
Patterns like the ed plus you becoming J.
Right. Or how the colds disappear between consonants, or how common phrases like going to or want to compress. When you start recognizing these links and changes automatically.
Then the fast speech doesn't sound quite so fast anymore.
Exactly. It starts to resolve into understandable chunks. It moves from being that overwhelming waterfall of sound to something with discernible patterns you can actually latch onto and understand.
That definitely feels less overwhelming already, just thinking about it as learnable patterns rather than just random, impossible speed. And that flows perfectly into the second key strategy we need to talk about, actively learning those common reductions and contractions.
Absolutely. Connected speech is primarily about how words link together. Reductions and contractions are more about the sounds within words changing, weakening, maybe disappearing altogether, or entire words combining into shorter forms.
Like I am.
That's a classic contraction.
Yeah.
And reductions are like the vowel in to becoming weak in wanna or gonna. These internal changes are the other huge piece of the puzzle. They contribute massively to spoken English, diverging from the written page and sounding fast to the unaccustomed ear.
Okay, so let's drill down into some more of these specific reductions that our source material really highlights. You mentioned wanna, gonna, and also gotta earlier. Those seem like the big three.
They really are. You hear them constantly in informal, everyday speech. Just to recap, want to, reducing to wanna, like in I want to leave soon.
Okay.
Going to reducing to gonna, like it's gonna rain later.
Right.
And got to, meaning have to or must. Reducing to gotta, like you gotta see this movie or gotta finish this.
And it's important to stress these aren't just like slang used by teenagers, right?
Yeah.
These are incredibly widespread in casual spoken English across many regions and age groups.
Oh, completely standard features of natural informal spoken English. If you're only listening for the full forms, want to, going to, got to, you are going to miss a huge amount of everyday conversation. Your brain just won't register the sounds wanna, gonna, gotta as matching those full forms unless you've learned to recognize them.
Okay, so those are crucial. But the material points out there are tons more beyond just those three, right? We already talked about, I don't know, becoming, I don't know.
Exactly. That reduction of the vowel sound in don't and the dropping of the final T sound, that pattern is incredibly common. You hear it in dunno.
What about other common situations like offering help or asking for things? The source mentions some examples there too.
Perfect examples of where reductions just happen all the time. Take offering help. You might write, let me help you.
Sounds polite, clear?
Sure. But in speech, you'll constantly hear, let me help you, or even just, let me help.
Let me. So let me becomes lemony. How does that work?
Again, efficiency. The T sound in let often gets dropped or assimilated before the M of me, and the vowel sound in me might weaken slightly. It just flows much more easily as lemmy.
And you also said ya at the end there.
Right. That's another super common reduction. The word you, when it's unstressed in a sentence, which it often is, frequently reduces to a weaker form like yeah, za.
So let me help you transforms into let me help ya. That's like 3 words all undergoing reduction and linking.
Exactly. And it happens in a split second.
Let me help ya. Okay, yes, I can totally hear that now that you pointed out. It's so much faster and smoother than pronouncing each word distinctly. Let me help you.
Much smoother. And similarly, when asking for something, you might write, give me that book. But you'll almost always hear, gimme that book.
Gimme, like G-I-M-M-E.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Wow.
Give me reduces to gimme. Again, the vowel in give might weaken slightly, and the V sound often disappears or merges completely with the following M sound. It becomes one smooth syllable. Gimme.
Okay, gimme one. Gonna, not, yeah. The list goes on.
It does. Think of kind of becoming kinda, sort of becoming sorta, have to becoming hafta.
Hafta, right, because the V sound changes to an F sound before the T.
Exactly. Voicing assimilation. And this is precisely why, if you're trying to listen word by word, expecting the full pronunciation of everything,
You just get lost.
you get lost. Your brain is waiting for the distinct sounds of, say, let me, but instead it hears the rapid, compressed sound, lummet. It doesn't compute fast enough, and by the time you realize what it might have been, the speaker is 3 sentences ahead.
It creates a processing bottleneck.
That's a great way to put it. There's a processing delay because the input sound doesn't match the expected template. But, and this is the crucial part, by learning these common reduced forms, by making your brain familiar with them.
You remove the bottleneck.
Exactly. Your brain can make that match instantly. When you hear gimme, your brain doesn't hesitate. It's trained to recognize it immediately as the reduced form of give me. Listening becomes much less effortful.
So the actionable step here, really digging into what the source material suggests, is to deliberately become aware of these. Pay conscious attention.
Yes. Don't just read English passively. Listen actively. Listen to movies without subtitles sometimes. Listen to podcasts, YouTube videos, real conversations if you can, and actively try to spot these reductions and connections.
Like a detective hunting for clues.
Kind of. Make a mental note or even a factual note when you hear wah or gonna or let me. Notice how of often sounds like an of or just like to a T. Notice how and often becomes just ren or even and like rock and roll.
So it's about conscious listening practice.
Conscious listening is the start. The more you expose your ear to these patterns and consciously recognize them, that was gonna, the more automatic that recognition becomes. It literally trains your ear to expect and decode these forms naturally.
Okay, so we've covered words connecting together and sounds within words reducing or disappearing. That paints a much clearer picture of why spoken English sounds the way it does. Now, let's shift gears slightly to a concept that honestly, it takes a lot of pressure off the listener.
Yes, this is a huge relief for many learners, and it taps into something native speakers do instinctively without even realizing it most of the time. The idea is you don't actually need to catch every single word someone says.
Really? That sounds counterintuitive. Don't I need all the words to understand?
You'd think so, but in English, meaning isn't distributed equally across all the words in a sentence. Certain words carry much more weight, much more information than others.
You mean like the important words versus the filler words?
Essentially, yes. Native speakers instinctively, naturally stress the words that carry the core meaning. These are usually the nouns, people, places, things, the main verbs, actions, the key adjectives, describers, and important adverbs, how, when, where. These are often called content words.
Okay, nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, content words, they carry the main message.
Exactly. And the smaller words, the grammatical glue, if you like, such as articles a and the prepositions in, on, at, for, to, conjunctions, and but or auxiliary verbs is or do, can, have, when they're just helping form a tense or question. These function words are usually unstressed.
Ah, so they're said more quietly, maybe faster.
Exactly. They're often reduced, shortened, linked together. Remember all those reductions we just talked about? They frequently happen in these unstressed function words.
Okay, so the function words are often where the blurring or the speed bumps happen for a learner, while the content words, the stressed ones, tend to stand out more clearly.
Precisely. The stressed content words act like anchors in the sentence. They deliver the core message. They get more emphasis, maybe slightly louder, often a bit longer in duration, sometimes higher in pitch.
I like little spotlights on the key information.
That's a great analogy. And because they're stressed, they're often easier to hear clearly, even if the unstressed function words around them are reduced, linked, or maybe even missed entirely by the listener.
Your brain can still get the main idea.
Often, yes. Yeah. Your brain is incredibly good at filling in gaps based on context and the key information it did catch.
Right.
If you get the main anchors, you can usually reconstruct the meaning.
Okay, the material gives a really good example to illustrate this. Let's try it. I'll say the sentence, and listeners, try to notice which words seem to pop out, which ones get the emphasis. I was thinking about calling you yesterday.
Can you hear it? Thinking, calling, yesterday. Those words naturally carry more stress.
Yeah, they definitely stand out. I was about you. They're much less prominent, quicker, quieter.
Right. So even if you, as the listener, perhaps didn't perfectly catch I was or about or even the reduced you, if you clearly heard thinking, calling, yesterday.
You still understand the main point. The speaker was considering making a call the previous day. The core meaning is there.
Exactly. You didn't need to process every single function word perfectly to get the gist. The stress content words delivered the essential information.
Let's try the second example from the source to really hammer this home. Again, listen for the emphasized words, the anchors. She's probably going to be late for the meeting.
Okay, listening. Probably late. Meeting. Those seem to be the key ones carrying the stress.
Agreed. She's a contraction already. Gonna or reduction, we know. They're all unstressed, gliding by more quickly. But the crucial information, probably late. Meeting is carried clearly by those stressed words. You instantly understand the main idea. Her arrival time for the appointment is likely delayed.
And notice how focusing on the stressed words helps you cut through the noise of the reductions like gonna. You grab the key information points.
This is huge. It genuinely shifts the goalposts for listening, doesn't it? It means you don't have to feel pressure to catch 100% of every single syllable perfectly.
Absolutely not.
The goal becomes more like identifying the key 30–40% of the words, the stressed content words that carry the main meaning.
And that is a much more achievable, much less stressful goal. Think about it. You already do this instinctively in your native language. You don't consciously process every single V or is or of. Your brain automatically filters for the key information.
Right. I don't hang on every single tiny word.
You focus on the meaning, the important bits. The skill here is learning to apply that same natural filtering strategy to English listening. Train your ear to listen for the stress. Listen for the words that the speaker seems to emphasize. Those are your anchors.
So if you combine recognizing common connected speech patterns and reductions with this skill of actively listening for the stressed words,
you suddenly have a much more powerful toolkit for decoding natural spoken English. You're listening smarter, not harder.
Okay, this is building a really clear picture. And that leads us perfectly, as you said, to the most practical, action-oriented strategy from the material, the one that kind of brings all these pieces together and actively trains your ear and your mouth at the same time.
Yes. This is the technique called shadowing. And it's specifically designed to help you internalize the rhythm, the stress patterns, the connections, the whole sound system of natural, fast English.
Shadowing. Okay, explain that. What exactly is it?
Shadowing is beautifully simple in concept, though it takes practice. You listen to a native speaker's audio, and you try to speak the exact same thing they're saying, either the exact same time or just a fraction of a second behind them.
Like an echo. Or a shadow following.
Exactly. You're like their linguistic shadow, mimicking everything they do as closely as possible in real time.
That sounds potentially quite difficult, like trying to keep up with a fast runner.
It definitely can feel that way, especially at first. Don't expect perfection immediately.
Right.
But the reason it's so incredibly effective, as the source material really emphasizes, is because it forces your brain to process English at its natural speed and rhythm.
So it's not passive listening anymore.
Not at all. You are actively trying to reproduce the sounds, the connections, the reductions going, the stress patterns, thinking, calling, yesterday, everything as you hear it.
So it's active listening combined with active speaking practice.
Precisely. And crucially, it builds a direct physical connection between what your ear is hearing and what your mouth is trying to produce. It trains your brain to make sense of that rapid, connected stream of sound because you're trying to create it yourself.
Okay, I can see the logic. It bypasses just thinking about the rules and gets you doing it. How do you actually do it effectively? What's the step-by-step guide from the source?
Right. It's pretty straightforward. Step 1, find a suitable audio clip. The material recommends starting small, just 1 or 2 minutes, is perfect.
Okay, short clip. What kind of audio?
Importantly, it should be real, natural spoken English. Not someone reading slowly and deliberately from a script designed for learners. Think a clip from a casual interview, maybe a segment from a talk show, a scene from a TV show or movie you like, a YouTube video where someone is just talking naturally, or even a part of a podcast like this one.
Okay, so natural speech, not textbook audio. Got it. Step 2.
Step 2. Listen to that short clip once, all the way through, without looking at any subtitles or transcript, even if they're available. Just listen for the overall meaning. Don't stress about catching every word yet. Just get the general idea, the gist of what's being said.
Understand the main topic or message first. Makes sense. Then what?
Step 3. Now, play the clip again. This time, as you listen, start speaking along with the speaker. Try to start just a split second after them and follow along as closely as you can.
So listen and repeat almost simultaneously.
Yes. And try your absolute best to match their rhythm, their speed, their intonation, the melody of their speech. Don't stop if you miss a word or stumble. Just jump back in and keep going, trying to stay right with them like you're glued to their voice.
Okay, Listen and speak along, matching the sound. That feels like the challenging part.
It is at first. But here's the crucial fourth step, the key element that makes shadowing so powerful for this specific challenge of understanding fast speech. Don't focus on saying each word perfectly and distinctly like you might read them.
Ah, so not word-by-word pronunciation.
Exactly. Instead, focus intensely on copying the overall sound. Pay close attention to how the speaker connects words. Wadea. Notice how sounds change or disappear in reductions. Hear where they put the stress, the emphasis. You are trying to reproduce the flow and melody of their speech, the whole sound package, not just recite the individual words.
So it's about imitating the sound of fluent, connected English, not just saying the dictionary pronunciation of the words you think you hear.
Precisely. You're training your mouth and your ear together to recognize and produce those natural, fluid patterns. It feels awkward initially, definitely. Your mouth might not keep up. You'll miss things. That's totally normal.
Persistence is key then.
Absolutely. And the material emphasizes consistency over length or perfection. Doing short, focused shadowing sessions regularly, maybe just 5-10 minutes a day, is far more effective than trying to do one long, frustrating hour once a week.
Little and often. Okay, this sounds incredibly practical. Can we actually try a bit of this right now? Using those examples we discussed earlier, I think hearing the natural speed, getting the breakdown again, and then giving the listener a specific moment to try shadowing could be really powerful.
That's a great idea. Let's make it interactive. Okay, let's take our first example, that casual conversation starter. Remember, pronounce slowly and carefully, word by word. It's, hey, what are you doing this weekend?
Right, but the natural speed version we talked about, much more common, is, hey, what are you doing this weekend?
Exactly. And just to refresh the breakdown, what are you connects and reduces to sound like wadaya. And doing often loses that final G sound in casual speech, becoming doin'.
Okay, listener, get ready. We're going to say the natural speed version again. Listen really carefully to the sound, the flow, the rhythm, how those words link up. Then we'll pause for just a few seconds, and that's your cue to try shadowing it out loud. Try to copy that sound and speed.
Ready? Here's the natural speed version again. Hey, what are you doing this weekend?
Okay, your turn. Try to shadow it now. Pause for practice. Allow about 5-7 seconds. How did that feel? A little fast? Maybe a bit clumsy? That's perfectly okay. That's the point to practice engaging with that speed. The goal isn't perfection. It's just to try and keep up, copying the sound. Let's do another one.
Okay, our second example, asking for help. Slow and clear. Can you help me with this?
But the natural speed, very common reduction is, can you help me with this?
Right. And the breakdown, can you, often reduces to the weaker form, can ya. And help me tends to link smoothly, sometimes sounding almost like helmy. That P sound can be very light or even blend into the M.
Okay, listen again to the natural speed version. Focus on that flow, the reduced ya, the linked help me. Then it's your turn to practice shadowing.
Natural speed. Can you help me with this?
Your turn to shadow. Go for it. Pause for practice. Allow about 5-7 seconds. Nice.
Yeah.
Are you starting to get the feel for it? It's about training your mouth and your ear to work together at speed. Let's do one more example before we do that final quick drill.
All right, the phrase expressing surprise.
Yeah.
Slow version. I didn't know that.
Natural speed, extremely common. I don't know that.
Yeah, sometimes even faster, like I don't know that.
The breakdown, didn't, reduces significantly. Often the D and T sounds merge or weaken, sounding like done or similar. And know that links closely. The W is silent, of course, and it sounds like know that.
Okay, listen carefully for that big reduction in didn't and the linking of know that in the natural version. Then try shadowing it yourself. Natural speed. I don't know that.
Yeah, turn to shadow. Try it. Pause for practice. Allow about 5-7 seconds. Fantastic effort. Seriously, even just attempting it for a few seconds starts building that connection in your brain. Now, let's do that final quick drill that was mentioned in the source material. We'll just give you the sentence at natural speed, quickly remind you of the breakdown, and then give you immediate practice time.
Okay, here's the sentence. Natural speed. What are you going to do later?
Okay, quick breakdown reminder. What are you becomes wadaya, and going to becomes gonna.
Right. Now listen closely and immediately try to shadow it right after we say it, as quickly and smoothly as you can. Ready? What do you do later?
Shadow it now. Quick. Pause for practice. Allow about 5-7 seconds.
Awesome.
That's the essence of shadowing practice. It's active, it's fast, and it forces you to engage directly with English as it actually sounds at its real speed. And as the source material consistently reinforces, consistent practice with techniques like this is absolutely key.
It really is.
It's how your brain starts to automatically, subconsciously recognize those patterns. We've spent this whole deep dive talking about the connections, the reductions, the stress points, without you having to consciously analyze every single sound.
This entire deep dive looking at all this material has really hammered home a central point for me. The perception of fast English isn't just about the raw speed the speaker is using.
Right. It's not always just syllables per second.
Exactly. It's often more about the listener's familiarity, or lack thereof, with these specific sound patterns of natural connected speech.
Yeah. Native speakers aren't necessarily talking faster in some absolute sense all the time, but the way they connect words and reduce sounds makes it sound much faster and more challenging if your ear isn't tuned into those patterns.
We've walked through the core reasons why this happens. Words linking together for efficiency.
Like wada.
Sounds within words reduce you and disappearing. Again, for ease of articulation.
Like gonna or let me.
Native speakers naturally stressing only the key content words to convey meaning.
Thinking, calling, yesterday.
And then, crucially, the power of active practice methods like shadowing to train your ear and mouth to handle all of this automatically.
The promise here, which really comes through strongly from the insights in our sources, is real and achievable. If you consistently work on recognizing these sound changes, if you practice listening actively for stress, and if you engage in techniques like shadowing, English will start to sound significantly slower to your ears over time.
It really will. You move from feeling like you're fighting against the current of the language
Yeah, constantly struggling to keep up.
to actually starting to flow with it because you understand the currents, the patterns.
And here's that truly transformative thought, the final provocative idea from the material to leave you with as you continue your learning journey.
The more you practice recognizing these patterns and training your ear, the source says, the slower English will start to sound. Your brain will adapt.
Your brain is an incredible pattern matching machine. It's built to adapt. When you deliberately expose it to authentic, natural spoken English, and you actively engage with it using techniques like shadowing, you are essentially teaching it the new patterns. You're upgrading its decoding software for spoken English. That initial feeling of hearing just one long sound with no breaks doesn't just feel less intimidating over time. It literally starts to segment itself in your mind. Your brain begins to hear the familiar chunks, what are you again, let me again, and pick out the stressed anchor words automatically.
It's a retraining process. It moves beyond just knowing the grammar rules on paper. It's about retraining your entire auditory processing system for the reality of English as it's actually spoken by millions of people every single day.
So the message is clear. Keep listening, keep noticing, keep practicing these techniques like focusing on stress and shadowing.
And watch, gradually but surely, as those impossibly fast conversations start to resolve into clear, understandable English. Your trained ear will definitely thank you for the effort.